All right, squad. Welcome back to the drafting circus. In the play-in stage, we got Mad Lions versus PSG. I actually think this was a pretty solid sort of, let's say, draft battle between both of these teams. I think based on with the restriction that both teams are assuming that all the current champs in rotation are like in fact the best champs available in the meta at the moment, then yeah, we can assume that this is actually pretty decent level drafting. And I think what I would like to see, though, I think for sure there's going to be additional champions that come into the mix by the time we get to the Switch stage, because I think there are a lot more champions that are untapped, and it just results like with the limitations and the pressure that these teams have, they're not willing to risk it all on like some crazy champ picks or quote unquote crazy champ picks, like more experimental champ picks that come up with more creative solutions. Like I'm sure a team like G2 probably wouldn't give a fuck, and they just like kind of swing for things, like yeah, this champ looks good here, guys, let's go for it. So with this being said, I think both teams have a decent grasp. I really like the way MDK's draft philosophy has kind of solidified here. PSG have a pretty solid idea as well, and they have a couple of quirks as well, and I think both teams had a little bit of fumbles here and there, and today we're just going to go through it. So with this first game, honestly, I'm going to keep it a buck here. It's kind of a toss at the R5. There really wasn't. It was a good draft up until that very point. Interesting flags here are the Nidalee ban from PSG, which basically dictates like they're not down for the Elyoya Nidalee. I think it just warps the game too much in terms of like, because if you think about it, every jungler is just basically a slave. This game, this Worlds patch, right? Tanks. Maybe Wukong is the most like interesting pick, I would say, but mostly tanks and a lot of facilitator stuff. It's exciting, but junglers are slaves in this meta, so it's not a big deal. Also, I'm noting out the Zyra ban against Junja specifically. It's one of those picks where it's like it doesn't make sense on paper, but Junja makes it look like it makes sense. Do you know what I mean? So with this first draft, the issue is simple. So Skarner B1, sure, they let the Ziggs open as well, so MDK clearly have a solid condition of they're going to be able to poke you out and eventually win as the game goes out, as long as they create enough space for Ziggs to basically scale and win the game on his own, right? PSG, they open Wukong Ashe, so it's more of like a FTB, but a little bit more aggression if you need it, type beat, and then they decide to opt in for a little bit more aggression by going Akali on 3. I would have liked to see potentially it be pushed back a little bit more if possible. Alternatively, if you must go mid on 3 here, you could go Yone. Alternatively, I think it's pretty solid if what your goal is having to force your way in. That's totally fine. I also would have seen like a support pick on 3 would have been pretty solid. So I forget what they cook here. No. This is why they lose actually. So they go Godyear on 4 into the Renekton, which is I guess fine because there's not really many options you can do in terms of aggressive options that fare well into, let's say, Renekton. You could have gone like Gnar or something as well, or there's a couple of other options, but nothing crazy that would dominate lane as well. And here's where they throw PSG in for a little bit of a loop with the Renekton mid, which is pretty smart actually, depending on the matchup, because Akali fares very poorly into top laners, and not enough teams actually tap into this. And there's a lot of flex picks available in this meta. You got the Poppy, sorry, not the Poppy. You got the Aurora, and you as well, so you're able to move around. And this is the death wish that I'm talking about here. This is the issue. So I just mentioned that they have to win by going forward, right? Because PSG don't really they've opted into this forward comp. They don't really win FTB. It's not really possible. The problem is they also have Skarner to kind of create space and push back. It's like perfect conditions, right? Skarner Ziggs, it's kind of tough. It's hard to play into it in the first place, but I'm not going to mention it too much. What I will mention is the Braum R5 that makes absolutely no sense in my opinion. It's like if you're going to go forward and what you're looking for is to try to win, why are you chilling in the back with the Braum? Like You definitely need facilitators here. You need like True Engage. You need or you need Stat Check FTB that still has backline access, right? Because this Ziggs is going to be a problem. And with the Braum, it just doesn't really create that. So I think, it's like a throwaway draft from PSG. Game 2, it's a little bit more interesting, actually. It creates more unique situations. So PSG opened with a vibey one, which basically no team is doing at the moment. And when I was thinking about it, it's actually not that bad because of the current pool of AD carries that are basically prevalent. If we're thinking about Lucians, Ezreals, MF, Jin, a lot of immobile stuff, to be honest with you. Jinx as well, a lot of immobile stuff. I would say there's only a couple of champs that would get true bailouts. Like the Jinx would get a bailout if you can go like Jinx TK or something like that, and then you can just draft around the Jinx. You can go Jinx Braum and then go for a full backward comp. That's not too bad at all. But most of the champions, like it's actually pretty hard. Like let's say MDK go for the Ezreal on 3 in order to match the MF. It's not really useful, to be honest with you. I don't like the MF that much, but with the context that the only good matchups into MF are these champions that are weak into Vi, it's actually a surprising hedge that you wouldn't normally think about at first. So I would say kudos to them on that one. Overall, I do like the drafting philosophy from MDK overall, though. Like the Viego Renekton opener, not bad. You can go into any AP mid on 3 or 4 or 3 or 4. We wouldn't do it on 5. It wouldn't really make sense. But like it's not too bad. But I would say it's more about like PSG kind of playing them well. They played them like a fiddle there. Kind of forced them to play certain picks. And this is like a El Clasico, like, if you just have 3 winning lanes, I guess you're just going to win the game, right? It's usually how it goes in drafts and professional play, because it just makes it more coordinated. And, the output or the reward you get for having 3 winning lanes is just like, teams are able to capitalize so much more and get so much more. So that's why it's much more successful in an environment like this versus solo queue. So it's not bad. It's actually a good tug of war between these two teams. Game 3. This is where it gets interesting. I do stand by the fact that this MF champ is not that good, to be honest with you. It's still sitting at like 48-ish, 48.5, 49 win rate. It's like, and she's usually tethered and being balanced around like 51, 52, or 52 is a little high, but you know what I'm saying. Like a champion is balanced at quote unquote balanced at specific win rates. That's why you see champions like Sona never being played, even though she's permanently like 52 win rate, right? That's just kind of how it goes. They are based on Riot's balance metrics for like how a champ is supposed to feel, right? A champion can win X amount, but whether that champion is balanced at X win rate is a little bit different, right? A 0 to 50 is like a global health crisis. Like we need to fix that immediately. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm saying champs like LeBlanc are actually quite an issue, because she's sitting at like 51 and she's usually balanced around 48, 47, to be honest with you. Like pro players can pilot that really well. So Aurora gets the B1 here. It's really strong. MDK actually make really good use of the flex here. They give up Skarner. That's totally fine. But this does open up the Ezreal pick again because they don't go for the Vi. LeBlanc is picked in response, which I actually think is pretty good. But like I said, we're in a meta where counter pick is so strong. So I actually think the more drafts I'm seeing, I think red side, it's either you get something really strong on blue, or more importantly, you just get really strong red side counter picks. Like you got to be super responsive and agile. The moment they pick certain things, you're like, yeah, they're cooked. We got to pick this. They can't move here. So really holding those important pivot picks is crucial, I think. And there's so many of them actually, like in a lot of different roles though. So I think Riot cooked with the current drafting sort of dynamic and forcing the patch to turn around. You see what I mean here? So you see the Vex on 5 to actually counter the R3 LeBlanc. So they actually took advantage of PSG's R3. And then there's some psychopathic Corki top shenanigans, which is honestly not that bad on paper, because Aurora fares really well into a lot of top laners. So you just turn into a mid lane matchup. But I don't like Corki, man. I think that champ's ass. It's like Corki's ass, MF's ass. Just drop these champs, guys. It's not that good. So I would have been down for any like even another AD carry. You just pick Lucian here. Even like I'm down for that. It also doesn't make sense, but it makes the Corki makes even less sense to me, if that makes sense. So yeah, overall, I think like I mentioned, it's pretty cool drafting dynamic from both sides. Like they're definitely putting a lot more pressure. They're every time a pick is revealed, PSG and MDK, they're like, all right, how do we punish this? What does our comp need to have in order to execute them here? And that's the name of the game here. So overall, lesson to take, good, well played drafts on both teams, from the most part, with a couple fumbles. But I think some more champions have yet to be discovered, and a proper drafting flow is going to be found out soon. So hope to look forward to those, and I'll catch you in the next one.